second by the second, then we'll go ahead. I have said this earlier also, and I'll say this once again. For any reason, if you have missed any class completely or a part of the class, please make sure you do see the recorded version. That is the only way you will be on track. If you miss one and you don't cover it up, it will later on cost you. Every class is important. Every topic covered is important. Every topic that we are covering have potential of being asked and have been asked in the past. So make sure you don't skip any, and please go ahead and see the recorded version, because I can see from the chat, the questions that come in, that some of you might have skipped some parts. So please do that. That's just for your benefit. Anand is saying, are the recorded versions same as live classes? So Anand, see, there are tab recordings which are done by other teachers. This class that you are seeing today, that is also that you will also get as a recorded version of this. So you can see I'm talking about the recording version of this one. You can watch that also. Shargun is saying difference between disaster management and crisis management. Shargun, crisis management is kind of man-made, human-made. Naxal problem, terrorist problem, that is crisis management. Disaster, we are talking about natural disaster that you can't control. Earthquake, floods, cyclones, etc. That is a part of disaster management. Like when you have disaster management classes, you don't read about terrorism, etc. Right? You read that in internal security. Vivek is saying how municipality can help in local level disaster. See, the one thing that municipality can do is, municipality, for example, has a responsibility of maintaining the drainage of the city. When the drains are clogged, this is when the floods have a higher chances. Urban floods in big cities that you see, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, it's usually because of municipality not doing their job properly. So rather than containing that, municipality should beforehand make sure that the drainage system is perfectly built so that the urban floods actually drop down. Let's move ahead then. Now is the beginning of module number 7. Now in module number 7, we have these topics that we'll be covering up. In module number 7, we will be talking about 3 statutory bodies, which you will see are pretty similar to each other in the kind of job that they do. So first, we will be discussing about NHRC, National Human Rights Commission. Then we'll be discussing about National Commission for Minorities. And then we'll be discussing about the National Commission for Women. What do they do? What is their role? What are the problems they're trying to solve? What are the issues that they have, the suggestions required, etc. After that, we will go on and discuss what are pressure groups, the role of the pressure groups in India, how do they work. Pressure groups, again, one of those topics from where you do see a lot of questions. And then in the end, we will be discussing about the role of NGOs in India and the role of self-help groups in India. What do NGOs do? What do self-help groups do? What are the problems in them? How are they helping the government? How are they not helping the government or the people? These are the things that we will be discussing today. So let's start our discussion. The first one that we are taking up is the National Human Rights Commission. Now, the National Human Rights Commission, as the name suggests, it's a commission that has been formed to preserve and safeguard the human rights of people in the country. National Human Rights Commission is a statutory body that was established in 1993. Let's first discuss the idea of what are human rights basically. If you read political science in detail, you will see political scientists have categorized different types of rights. There are legal rights, there are moral rights, there are human rights, etc. Let's forget all about them and let's just focus on the idea of human rights for a bit. What are human rights? The simple idea of human rights is, because you were born as a human being, you deserve to have certain rights. Doesn't matter which country where you were born, doesn't matter how rich you are, doesn't matter how poor you are, doesn't matter you live in which city, which country. If you are born as a human being, you deserve certain rights should be given to you. That is the idea of human rights. Now, if you look at the history of human rights system in India, human rights around the world, it is one of the first thing that the United Nations did. United Nations was formed in 1945. In 1948, the UN General Assembly, so UNGA is United Nations General Assembly. In 1948, they accepted a declaration which was called UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This photo that you see on the screen is a very famous lady, or was a very famous lady, Eleanor Roosevelt. You might recognize her surname, if not the entire name. You might think the surname sounds familiar, right? Now, why the surname is famous? She is the wife of Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was the American president in the Second World War. So, when the Second World War was going on, Franklin D. Roosevelt was the American president. She was the wife of Franklin D. Roosevelt. Now, why? Did she do? What is her role here? So, in America, there is a tradition that the wife of the president, that is the first lady or the wife of the president, can take up any project that they want to support. It's a long-standing tradition. It's not a rule, but it's a tradition that wife of the president, the first lady of the US, takes up some project that they want. Like Barack Obama's wife, Michelle Obama, she took up the project of child rights. So she used to address a lot of conferences about child rights, how to protect children, etc. So it's a very common kind of a tradition. So Franklin D. Roosevelt's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, she was very concerned about human rights. Imagine that era, Second World War going on. Most countries, including India, were not independent. In most of the countries that were not independent, that were under colonial powers, they did not have any rights given to their citizens. Countries such as the US, European countries had rights given to the citizens, but usually, if you look at countries which are today developing countries, or you call them the third world countries, they did not really have a lot of rights given to them. So, every country has a representative in the United Nations. India also has an officer as a representative in the United Nations. For India, it is an IFS officer. We usually send an Indian Foreign Services officer, usually. I am saying usually because the government can send anyone that they want, but usually they send an IFS officer who will represent the country. In America, it's a presidential form of government, so American president can send anyone. That's a different matter altogether. So in America, Eleanor Roosevelt, wife of the president, was sent in the UN as the American representative. So she started this idea that UN should have a declaration about human rights that every country around the world should follow. So she played a major role in drafting this resolution, which is called Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This document contains 30 articles, 30. These are just one liners, and I will just show you what these are. These are very, very similar to India's fundamental rights. You will see a lot of fundamental rights that are in our constitution, part 3 of the Indian constitution, are actually written here. It's very, very similar to that. Anyways, these are not legally binding on the government. So just because the UN has passed this Declaration of Human Rights, that does not mean that every country has to abide by it. Other countries, other countries can just forget about it. They can neglect that also, not a problem. But it's a suggestion to the countries around the world that you should also go ahead and have something like this. These are the 30 ones. If you are able to read it, fine. If you are not able to read it, text is too small. I will read some of them and you can zoom in the photo and you will be able to read. For example, it talks about equality before law, which is again like what we have in Article 14. It talks about ban on torture. It talks about right to have a free and public trial, freedom of equality, right to have legal assistance, right to own a private property, right to work, right to health, right to have democratic participation, vote, etc. These are total 30, 30. Do you have to remember all of them? No, you don't have to remember all of them. Don't worry. But this is just to give you an idea What is it that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights contains? It contains usually these 30 things that was passed in the UN. That is how the idea of human rights came into picture internationally around the entire world. Now, coming to how India got NHRC, National Human Rights Commission. Now, understand first what the National Human Rights Commission does, and then I'll tell you the story of how it came into picture. So, in simple terms, although they have multiple jobs, and I'll discuss those functions as well, but in simple terms, the function of the National Human Rights Commission is, if there is a government servant, again, only government servant, if there's a government servant, there's a public servant who is violating your human rights, then you have the right to go and file a complaint to NHRC. This is their primary responsibility. They have other responsibilities as well, and we'll come to that in just a bit. But the primary responsibility that they have is, if a public servant is violating your human rights, you can go and file a complaint to them. Let's take a real example. Let's say the police arrested you without any proof. Even though, let's say, they have proof, they have arrested you, fine. But then police does not have the right to beat you in the prison. Why? Because you have the right against torture. So police is beating you up in the lockup, which is not allowed. So in that case, a complaint can be filed against a police officer that they are violating my human rights. That's the primary example of what NHRC does mainly. We'll come to why they are not that successful, but in simple short term, this is what they do. Now just imagine, would the government really be interested in making a body that is looking into the complaints against public servants only? The governments will never want to make such a body, right? At the end of the day, why would the government create this body that will look into complaints, find faults in the government only, find faults in the government servants only? So government will never want to make that body. So now the question comes, why did the government create this kind of a body? Why did we have National Human Rights Commission? Answer to that is our global image. The answer to that is our global image. Why? In 1991, the UN organized a workshop in Paris on the topic of human rights, where the UN nations were invited in Paris to discuss the progress of human rights in their countries, what should the individual governments do, what have they done so far in order to give human rights to their people. At the end of this conference, some rules called Paris Principles were adopted. A part of the Paris Principles was every country will establish a specific body to look into human rights violations. So a part of Paris Principle was all the countries that participated, they said, okay, we will try to make this kind of a commission to look into human rights violations. Now the question is it binding on the government? Obviously no. These international conventions, international resolutions, never binding on the government. So the government can ignore that as well. But now comes a question of international image, global image. Do you want to be a country at the global level that says, no, I will not listen to international resolutions? Or do you want to be a country that says, oh, I'm very good, we will listen to international resolutions, we will be a good boy? That is where it comes to what is the image that you want to present to the world. So in 1993, we made a law, we passed a law saying, okay, we will make a National Human Rights Commission. Because of the Paris Principles only, you will see around the world, not just India, most countries around the world created their concept of Human Rights Commission nearby the same time. Nearby the same time, these bodies were created by multiple countries around the world. And I'll tell you something else. India went one step ahead. They said, you're talking about Human Rights Commission. We are such a good boy. We will make a women commission also. Not just this, we will make a minority commission also. Now tell us who is the good boy. So we did all of that. These were made in 1992. 1993, this was done. It was a time that we had to present a great global image. Why? 1991, we had the LPG reforms. We were opening up to the world. We wanted as much investment to come into India. We had our own crisis. We wanted to establish good relationship with the Western countries. We wanted to present an image of India being liberal, being global. It was a part of all that image that, see, we are such a good country. Teacher doesn't even tell us and we do the homework beforehand. Teacher doesn't even has to tell us and we will be the first one to come in the class, clear the blackboard, sit in the first row, we'll do everything. That was a part of our global image basically going up. So now you will see a lot of these commissions being formed around the same time. Human Rights Commission, Women Commission, Minority Commission. Although all of these were established by the government as a part of our image makeover, none of these are given a lot of powers. We'll discuss how and why, but none of these are given a lot of powers as such. Let's come to starting of our National Human Rights Commission. So as I said, it's a statutory body created by the Parliament of India in 1993. There was a law passed on it. The law is Protection of Human Rights Act of 1993. Under this law, we created a body called the National Human Rights Commission. Now, who are the members who work here? Let's start with that. In case you read about this, by the way, all the statutory bodies, at least this body, NHRC, you will find a chapter on NHRC in Indian polity book also. You can read it from there. It's perfectly fine. One more thing. The law of NHRC was amended in 2019. It was amended in 2019. So what I'm trying to say is, if you are reading from any source or any book that does not have this composition, the one that you see right here on the screen, that means it is an old book or an old article that you are reading, because changes were made in 2019. So I would suggest, if you are reading from any book anywhere which does not have this same kind of a thing that is written here, please don't read that, because it would not be the one that is most updated, because in 2019 there was a change in the law. Let's see what is the composition at present. At present, NHRC has a chairman. Chairman has to be either retired Chief Justice of India or a retired Supreme Court judge. Earlier, it was only a retired Chief Justice of India. This was added in 2019. Earlier, it was only retired Chief Justice of India. This Supreme Court judge was added in 2019 only. Then there have to be two judicial members. One judicial member, former or a sitting Supreme Court judge. Other judicial member, former or a sitting Chief Justice of a High Court. So two judicial members. Apart from that, three other members who are experts or have experience in the field of human rights. So three other members. This was also changed in 2019. Before 2019, it used to be two members. Before 2019, it used to be two members. In 2019, it was changed to three members here. And these three members, you should be those people who have experts, who are experts in the field of human rights, etc. Out of these, one has to be a woman compulsorily. Yes, Kiran. Out of these, one has to be a woman compulsorily. Now, just understand this point very carefully and think of it from the government's point of view. Think of it from the government's point of view. Why would the government do this? From two, you have made it three, first of all. And who are these people? Look at the qualification criteria. Who will these be? These people would usually be civil servants, right? If you look at their qualification criteria, they would usually be civil servants. So what is the government doing now? Earlier, out of the total of 5 people in the NHRC, 3 were from the judiciary, 2 were from the civil services. Understand this. Before 2019, Out of the 5 members, three from the judiciary, two from the non-judiciary. Now, what the government has done, they have made it a 6-member body. Out of the 6 members, 3 from judiciary, 3 from civil services. So they have increased the representation of civil services here. This is why they have actually made a change. Now, apart from that, we also have 7 ex officio members. We also have 7 ex officio members. Who are ex officio? What is ex officio? Ex officio means they are not full-time permanent members here. They hold some other post. Because of that virtue, they become a representative here also. So they hold another post. Because of that, they are considered as representatives here as well. Like vice president is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Similarly, here also, 7 ex officio members. Who are these ex officio members? 7 heads of commissions. Which commissions? National Commission for Scheduled Caste, National Commission for Scheduled Tribe, National Commission for Women, National Commission for Minority, National Commission for Backward Classes. What is this? NCPCR. What is this? Which commission is this, by the way? Yes. National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. So if you see these 7, the 7th is Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disability. These 7 people, heads of these 7 organizations, will be the ex officio chairperson of this NHRC. Ex officio members will be 7, which are heads of these organizations. These are the present people who are heading the NHRC. You don't have to remember their names. Justice Arun Mishra, retired Supreme Court judge, is the chairman. We have 3 members only right now. As always, again, there is a vacancy as expected. There are ex officio chairmen. 7 ex officio chairmen have been written here. So this is how the composition works now. Now, how does the appointment work? Who are the people who would appoint them? The appointment is done by the President of India. President of India will do the appointment on the basis of recommendation given by the 6-member committee. This is slightly different than others, slightly trickier to remember because it's a bigger committee. So there are 6 members in the appointing committee. There is Prime Minister as a chairperson, leader of the Speaker of the Lok Sabha. There is a cabinet minister, that is Ministry of Home Affairs, so the Home Minister. Then it has leader of opposition of the Lok Sabha and leader of opposition of the Rajya Sabha as well. And then interestingly, deputy chairperson of Rajya Sabha as well. Deputy chairperson of Rajya Sabha as well. So there are total of 6 members, so slightly more confusing to remember. But please do remember, this is important. It may be asked. Usually committees that you will see, appointing committees are 3 members, 5 members, but it has 6 members in total. Usually in most of the appointing committees, you will not see the leader of opposition of the Rajya Sabha also being present, but here it is. Usually you would not see deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha, but it is there. So please do remember that. That is how the appointment usually happens. Now, the removal process, I've been telling you from very first day, from the very first class of governance. Removal process for HRC is the same as UPSC members, same as CIC, same as CVC, same as Lokpal. So I don't think I had to go into detail of that. All of you have heard it multiple times. President can remove, but asking the Supreme Court to conduct the inquiry. Supreme Court will check the person in any of these cases. If the person is found to be guilty, they will ask the president, they will remove him. The simple process as we have been discussing in all the bodies that we have discussed so far. So I don't think that should really be a problem here. The term of office is 3 years. Again, something that was changed in 2019. Before 2019, it used to be 5 years. In 2019, when the law was changed, it was brought down to 3 years. Another interesting part, which you will not see in most other organizations, is they are eligible for reappointment. They are eligible for reappointment. In most other bodies, we have seen that they are not eligible for reappointment. In most other bodies, when they complete a tenure, they can't have a second tenure. But over here for NHRC, we do see that they are eligible for reappointment, provided that they have not touched the retirement age. So if they are still not 70, they have completed a 3-year tenure, they can have one more tenure to go if they want to. But once they retire, after that, they cannot have any other job under the government of India. So no other employment apart from this, but this employment they can have, and they can have more than one tenure also until the age of 70 years. This is a summarized version of the changes that were made in 2019. Is it important for the examination now? Not really. See, when an act has changes, let's say in 2019, it is important for 2020, it is important for 2021, maximum that. After that, you are giving exam in 23, 24, in some cases you're giving exam in 25. So now it is not really relevant. You just read the new version, that is good enough. Comparison with 93 or the original act is not really important now, but at least read about what is the comparison once. But again, not that important now. Just read the new version of what the current law is after the 2019 change was created. This is again a summarized version. You can read it in the PPT that you have. Not a lot of importance to be attached. Now coming to the most important part of it. What are their functions? What do they do? What are the issues? Why they have not been successful? All of these. In the beginning, I told you their primary function is collect complaints against public servants in the cases of human rights violations. So if you think a government servant has violated your human rights, go and file a complaint to NHRC. You can go ahead and file a complaint. Now, what do they do? Again, the same thing. NHRC will get your complaint. Ultimately, they will ask the CBI to conduct an inquiry. And again, the problem begins. Like other bodies such as the CVC, Lokpal, they are again dependent on the CBI only to conduct an inquiry, because they don't have the police under them. They don't have their own team that will conduct an investigation for them. Ultimately, they will depend on the CBI to conduct an inquiry and see if the CBI is able to prove that someone is guilty or not guilty. That is the biggest problem in their working. That if they even get a complaint and they get that, or they give the case to the CBI, CBI is too busy to give priority to their cases, number one. Second, like most other bodies, their biggest problem is they are also just a recommendatory body in nature. So if the CBI conducts an inquiry and the CBI tells them that yes, an officer, police officer is guilty, he was beating up people inside the prison, what will the NHRC do? They will ask the government to transfer or suspend the officer, but then the government decides whether they want to take that action or not. That is where the problem is. Anyway, we'll come to problem in just a bit. The other function is they also can intervene in the court in matters relating to human rights. Now, what do you mean by that? If you actually see this, basically, there are a lot of cases in the court where you have a situation where the line of questioning can become very, very problematic. For example, when you have rape cases, in rape cases, especially the lawyer who is defending the accused starts asking questions which will embarrass the person who is the victim here. They start asking questions which the victim will not be comfortable with, because that is how they want to prove that the person is not guilty or whatever their strategy is. That may lead to such line of questioning that may even be a compromise on the person's human rights. This is where the NHRC has a right to intervene in the court. So they can intervene in the court, they can suggest the court that please don't do this, stop this line of questioning. And again, because the NHRC comprises of who? Comprise of Supreme Court judges, retired Chief Justice of India. So obviously, when they suggest something to a court, the court will most probably listen to them, because the courts also know these are very big people. They are either sitting chief justices or retired Supreme Court judges, so they will also listen to them. So they can intervene in the court also when there are matters relating to human rights violation in the ongoing proceedings of the court. Another interesting job that they have is they make visits and inspections to jail and other places where the people are kept by the government, by the police. If they think that there is a need for improvement, if they think that the people's human rights are being compromised in this facility, if they think the government should change and bring in some change in the infrastructure, all of that would be recommended by them to the government to change. Again, the government will decide finally when if they want to change something, if they do not want to change something. But the NHRC can look into all these things. They can look into whether the prisons, for example, are working properly or not. Are the rights of the people in the prisons being given to them or not? If they think that something is going wrong, people are not getting the rights that they deserve, because even when you're in the prison, you have certain basic minimum human rights. If they're not given to you, then they can suggest action to the government. Then, apart from that, what do? They review the laws in India, they review the constitutional provisions about human rights, and they see whether the laws are being implemented well or not. If they think that a law is not being implemented well about human rights, if there's a need to change the law, then again they will recommend to the government to make changes. In all of these functions that we are talking about, there is one word in common every single time. That one word is in common is recommend. They will make recommendations. So in every single time, they can just make recommendations. Please remember this. That is what makes them a pretty toothless body if you think of it. They can just make recommendations rather than actually saying that, see, we can do this, we can suspend the officer. They can just suggest to the government, and as we have discussed earlier, if the cases are against those government servants which the government really likes, government will not take any action. Otherwise, the government may decide to take certain action. They also will suggest to the government how to bring in measures to stop acts such as terrorism, because terrorism, etc., also leads to human rights of the people being violated. So they recommend action, how to stop terrorism, how to deal with terrorist cases, etc. Again, the idea is that human rights of the people should not be violated. They read and study about different agreements other countries are doing. They suggest the government what kind of agreements we can also to make the lives of the people better. They study international treaties, international instruments, and suggest to the government how can we implement them better. They also conduct research in the field of human rights. They tie up with many research institutions about the idea of human rights, how to propagate that even further. They engage with communities, educate them about human rights, encourage them to come and file a complaint if they have a human rights violation. They make the people aware that there's something called NHRC. They have media interactions, seminars, etc. Tell the people about what is human rights. And they even work with NGOs and people in this field. How many of you have heard of this person, Kailash Satyarthi? Have you heard of him? Kailash Satyarthi. Have you heard of him? Why is he famous? No. Very surprised. No. Okay. If okay, those who are saying no, I'm pretty surprised. He's a Nobel Prize winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. He has an NGO called Bachpan Bachao Andolan. Bachpan Bachao Andolan. Nobel Peace Prize winner from India. Why is he famous? He has rescued thousands of children who were into forced labors, who are being forced into prostitution, who are being forced into all sorts of bad things. So he runs this NGO called the Bachpan Bachao Andolan. For example, I'm giving an example because NHRC, for example, will work with these kind of people and give them help as much as required, support their work to bring it even forward, to go and have this work at even a much larger scale than this. So again, this is the job of what the NHRC does: engage with experts, NGOs, etc. in this field to take forward the role of the NHRC. After all these functions, there are some issues of the NHRC as well. Today, we will be studying about three organizations, as I told you in the beginning. After NHRC, we'll be discussing Minority and Women Commission as well. In all these three, you will see something in common. The issues that we are discussing here, almost all of them are true with all other organizations as well. There are some issues here and there, but for example, the issue that you read here would be similar to the issue that you will read later in other organizations as well: Women Commission, Minority Commission. So they suffer from similar kind of a problem there as well. Like in NHRC, first problem: not enough staff, not enough finances. Again, the government created these bodies for their global image, to tell the world that, see, we have these organizations, but the government has not given them a lot of power or even the finances. Now you may ask, but why do they need finances? What do they do with money? So again, when you say NHRC conducts seminars, media interactions, educate the people about NHRC, have inspection about jail, etc., to travel here to there, all of that requires money, right? All of that requires money. So for all of that, you require the government to help and come in with the finances, which the government does not do. NHRC does not have a very big staff to work for them. That also remains a big problem. Ultimately, they are dependent on the CBI only to conduct the investigation. They don't have their own police. It's not like they have been given 100 policemen that they are yours, they will work for your cases. No. For every single case, every single time, they will have to request the CBI, can you please do this? Please do this as a favor. So that again creates a bit of an issue, that whether the CBI has the bandwidth to handle their cases or not, whether the CBI can take up these issues or not. Delay in the implementation of recommendation. As we discussed, they don't have the power to take any concrete action. Rather, they can only recommend. That recommendation, whether it would be accepted by the government or not, depends on the government entirely. Even when the government accepts the recommendation, let's assume, even in that case, the implementation part is usually delayed considerably. The government usually will only recommend those recommendations, will only accept those recommendations which they think is in their interest, or which at least does not harm their interest. So the implementations usually get delayed. And then a very unique problem. If you want to file a complaint to the NHRC, you can only file a complaint about what happened in the last 1 year. Like today is 27th of June 2023. You can only file a complaint between what happened 27 June 2022 till today. Something that took place before that cannot be complained to NHRC. So they will look into complaint of up to 1 year only. That also is a big issue. Now, before you ask, sir, but if something happened before that, then go to the police. As simple as that. So NHRC here will only have 1 year of this time period. Within 1 year, whatever happened, you can get complaints to them. But if something happened before 1 year, no, they don't cover this up. Before you ask me why, I don't know. Maybe file an RTI, government will be able to tell you. But this is what the government has made as a law. To keep their powers limited, 1 year is what they get. Something happened before 1 year, it does not come into them. Then NHRC does not engage with a lot of outsiders. I gave you an example of Kailash Satyarthi, Bachchan Bachao Andolan. Ideally, the NHRC should collaborate with these kind of people. They have been working in the field of human rights for many decades now, around world over, doing a great job. But the problem is, engaging with them also requires money, and they don't have enough money when you talk about it. So they don't have enough money when it actually comes to engaging with them. They don't have enough money to help these organizations. Because ideally, what do you mean by engagement? Ideally, engagement should be that NHRC should tell Mr. Satyarthi that you are doing a good job. You go ahead, rescue children, we will give you support. If you want more money, we'll give it to you. You go and rescue children, right? Ideally, that should be engagement. But when they themselves don't have money, what will they promise? So the engagement remains poor mainly because of lack of finances, lack of funding, lack of personnel, anyways. That is why the impact may not be that big. Apart from that, annual reports are held up by the government due to the laxity. Laxity basically means carelessness or basically non serious attitude. All these bodies that we are discussing today, apart from that, all the constitutional bodies, all the statutory bodies in India, be it the CVC, CIC, Lokpal, CAG, Election Commission, Finance Commission, this NHRC, all these bodies have one thing in common, that is, each and every one of them has to prepare an annual report about what they did throughout the year. And then that annual report is submitted to the President of India. As always, the President will present that report in the Parliament. Parliament may discuss, may not discuss, or whatever. But each of these organizations has been mandated that you have to prepare an annual report of your work. When this report goes to the Parliament, it should become public. It should become public means you, me, common people, we should be able to access the report and see. But with NHRC, over the past many years, such reports have not been made public. Many of these reports are still not available online, which begs the question, does the government not want the people to know about what this agency is doing? Does the government not want us to know that they are taking up cases or not taking up cases or whatever? Something basically is hidden here. That also remains a big issue, because of which we have not been able to see NHRC making a huge impact anyway. I will share a couple of examples with you of what the NHRC, for example, has done. And this is almost exactly 1 year ago. This is just a general thing that they keep on doing. Like in June 28, 2022, they made a recommendation. They issue advisory to center state government on the rights of the truck drivers. For example, truck drivers unfortunately are harassed and exploited considerably by the government, by the police. Police thinks of them as cash machines, stop them and then ask them for paperwork, ask them for a bribe, etc. So NHRC, for example, has suggested that you should not harass them. And you would have seen that news also. Government has said that after 2025 now, all the truck cabins have to be air conditioned. So again, this is what NHRC does, giving advisory to the government, suggesting to the government. Whether the government accepts it or not depends entirely upon them. This is just an example of what NHRC does. One more thing, again 1 year ago, they issued notice to Center on Air Pollution Cutting Life Expectancy, as if it's such a secret that no one knows. So they just issued an advisory that, see, this is happening and you should do something about it. But again, why do they do that? See, the people who are the head of NHRC, who are members of NHRC, they get paid a lot of money. So at the end of the year, they have to justify, right, what they did. They can't say, I don't know, just solve some Sudoku, watch Netflix and chill. No, they have to show what this is what we did, right? We issued this notice to the government, we issued that notice to the government, we had this, we had that, etc. So again, you have to show some work. And this is the work basically what they did. So they issue these kind of notices and they see what exactly can the government do about it. So government may or may not take certain action. This was our first statutory body for the day, National Human Rights Commission. I have a couple of questions. I'll first quickly go into them and then we'll go into the second body. I have a question from Vishal. Any significance or purpose of including leader of opposition of the Rajya Sabha and other new members, which is not common? Vishal, not really a great significance. Usually these are done as political tools many times. So let's say at that point of time, it may have been that one of the coalition partners of the government, that party had that position, deputy chairperson of Rajya Sabha. So to make them happy, these kind of concessions are given, but not a great significance as such. Then Rahul is saying why we do not have National Commission for Men. You can make a National Commission for Men. Who's stopping you? Go ahead and start and protest against the government. I want National Men Commission, otherwise I will not vote for you. Maybe they'll have it. No? Then I have a question. Anushka is saying fundamental rights are similar to human rights. Similar, the concept of human rights is broader. It has more things as compared to fundamental rights. Yes, there's an online portal for NHRC. You can search for this. You can get the online portal. Ambish is saying, what was the sentence related to ordinance in previous slide? Ambish, I'm not sure which slide you are talking about, which ordinance statement. You have the PPT. I don't think there's any statement you could not be able to understand. Anu is saying, why these commission only for namesake? See, understand something. These commissions are not for namesake purposes. But think of it from the point of view of the government, any government. Why would a government make any commission where the recommendations are binding? Because when you make recommendations binding, you are giving too much power away. So no government would ever make recommendation binding on it or for any commission because they don't want to give away the power, as simple as that. Also, for example, in India, if you look at, there is one commission only whose recommendations are binding on the government, that is the Delimitation Commission. That also has its own loopholes. The government can delay the implementation, etc. So basically, if you see, I won't say that these are ideal organizations because they don't have a lot of powers, true. But on the other hand, you should not expect any government to actually make laws or make bodies and give them so much power that whatever you say will be binding on us. No government will do that. Never. No one comes to power to give away power. Everyone wants to power or wants to come to power to consolidate more power. As simple as that. If you are a younger child in your house, would your elder son or elder daughter, sorry, elder brother, elder sister, would they give you the TV remote? No, they will not. Elder sister, elder daughter, or elder brother, sister, they keep the TV remote with themselves, right? They don't become elder people just to give you the power. So similarly, no government would want to give away the power. It's the nature of every government. So you should not be surprised by that anyway. I'll take one last question, then we'll move on. It's an interesting question. I think I mentioned this again as well. Ravinder is saying, why mostly judges are appointed in the higher post? See, it's a kind of an unsaid arrangement between government and the judges. It's kind of a loophole in the law. After Supreme Court judges retire, they cannot have any other job under the government of India. So government tells them indirectly that you want to earn after this, right? How will you earn? We will make a committee. We'll make you the head of the committee. You earn money. Don't give any report that harms us. Work in our favor. Win-win. You win, we win, full stop. That is how it works. Okay, one last question. So Deepto is saying, should there be a mechanism whereby governments, politician parties, statutory bodies such as NHRC are mandated to donate some part of their salary to relief funds and government schemes? What do you want me to say? Just me saying something will not really change anything. See, just because someone is working for the government, you cannot force them to give a part of their salary to some person. As simple as that. We have a habit of making villains out of those people who are working for the government. If you want to give your salary, give it to something. If you don't want to give the salary, don't give it. As simple as that. How can you force someone to give a part of their salary? If you really want, let the government directly give it in the charity. As simple as that. Maybe when you do become an IAS officer, your thinking will change. Right now, you are not a part of the government, so you want them to donate a salary. Maybe when it's your salary, maybe your thinking will change. But again, these things already exist. There is a name for that. You call it the tax. So these things already exist. A part of a salary coming out, going to charitable organization. This is not a groundbreaking idea. It already exists for thousands of years. You call it the tax. So it's a part of tax only. I'm not sure how you can justify that they are the ones who should be forced. Because if your suggestion is that charity should be done, why not everyone? Why do you want the government servants only to give to charity? Are they the devils? No. You give the salary. Who is stopping you? Let's go ahead then. Before we, okay, I think we should go ahead. The next one that we have here is a statutory body called the National Commission for Minorities. As the name suggests, National Commission for Minority would be doing somewhat similar kind of a job as the NHRC with a primary focus on the minorities. So if you are from the minority community, you have a complaint, let's say you are being discriminated against on the basis of your identity minority, you are being removed from the job because of your minority, you are being discriminated against, not allowed to go in a certain area because of being a minority, then these minority commissions, etc., come into the picture. Now let's start with this. Does the Constitution of India give a definition of the word minorities? Does the Constitution define what exactly is a minority? No. The Constitution has no definition of the word minority. Constitution has the word minority multiple times. It says about the rights of the minorities. You see Article 30, you see Article 29 also. It talks about the word minority, but it does not define who will be a minority, who will not be a minority. So, how do we define minorities in India? In India, in simple terms, as per the Minority Act of 1992, a minority community is a community that is notified as minority by the central government. So, for any minority to be called, or for any community to be called a minority, the central government must notify that this is a minority community. So far, we have 6 religious communities in India which are regarded as minorities. These 6 are Muslims, Christians, Sikh, Buddhists, Parsis, and Jains. These are the religious minorities in India as notified by the government of India. Now, there are a couple of things that you have to understand here. As I said first, there is no definition of the word minority in the Constitution of India, number one. Second thing that you have to understand, although the Constitution talks about 2 types of minorities, if you say the Constitution of India talks about 2 types of minorities. The Constitution talks about religious minorities and the Constitution talks about linguistic minorities. The Constitution talks about the rights given to these. However, as per the government of India, so far, government has not recognized any linguistic minority so far. The government of India has only recognized minorities on the basis of religion so far. Usually, the general idea from the side of the government is that if there is a community with less than 20% population, that is a general idea from the side of the government. Any community having less than 20% population in the country would come under the definition of the word minority. Again, the central government has identified these as minorities. There may be some other religions that are not here, like the Jews are not here, but that is what the government has done so far. Government has only notified these six as minorities. Now, the question that I have is, I see whenever we teach, whenever we discuss this topic, we are living in a time, it's a very polarizing topic for whatever reasons. But the only thing I expect out of you, I only expect one thing out of all of you. The only expectation I have is you are preparing for the UPSC exam and understand the importance, because a lot of times I feel that you are not able to understand the exam that you are preparing for. You take it too lightly. And when I say too lightly, what I mean to say is you trust anything that you read anywhere. Someone would have told you, oh, they have this much population, and you're like, very high population, very high population. Someone would have told you this has very low population, you believe, very low population, without even reading exact facts. So whatever perception you have, or what population, high, low, whatever you have, my only request with folded hands is you are preparing for the most prestigious exam in the country. Focus on facts and not something you read or your friend told you or you heard somewhere. Focus on facts. Do as little as a Google search of census, the most authentic government data. So if you really want, you don't trust anyone, fine. Just you do Google search every single day for millions of things. Maybe do a Google search of census 2011, see what is the population where, so you can at least get an idea rather than throwing numbers anywhere, because this will really cost you in the exam. I'm telling you very honestly, I feel bad for you because I know how dangerous it can be for the examination point of view when you trust anything that you want. So again, wherever you talk about numbers, oh, this is that, please see the sources and then talk, because again, you are not preparing for those exams where it doesn't matter. In this exam, numbers matter. Whatever you said tomorrow will be the voice of the government of India. Just imagine the gravity of that situation. So if you are planning to become the representative of India, you can't randomly throw around numbers. Do you know sun rises in the north? I was told by my WhatsApp, right in the north, not in the east. Such a lie. No, you can't. There are facts. So check facts, and then it's for your own good. Trust me. I don't have anything to gain out of it. But trust me. Okay? Let's go ahead then. So basically, the idea is six communities have been regarded as minorities by the government of India. The government of India has not recognized any linguistic minority so far. Maybe they will do it in the future, but at least right now, 27th of June 2023, till today, we have no officially recognized linguistic minorities in India. Now, the question that I have is, let's say there is a community that is given the status of a minority in India. The question I have is, what do they gain from it? Let's say you become a minority. What will change? What will you gain out of it? What do you think? What do you think? Okay. Please stop, 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 stop. Statue. Stop, statue, whatever you play. Stop. Arey, stop, Baba, stop. Okay. One of the biggest misconceptions people have, one of the biggest misconceptions people have for some reason is that in government job you have minority reservation. Please tell me in which government job we have minority reservation. If you really know that, please tell me in which government job you have minority reservation. OBC are not minority. OBC are not minority, man. OBC are not minority. Do you have in UPS reservation for any of these? If yes, maybe you should read the UPSC notification once again. Do you think they have reservation in the bank jobs? Not really. In the central government jobs, you do not have reservation. So please don't think it's a reservation thing. So let's have that. As I was saying, read more and then form an opinion. So as I said, they do not have reservation for these in central government jobs. You don't have UPSC saying that these seats are for them, these seats are for them. No, they are not for them. As simple as that. Okay, let's go ahead then. What is the gain that they get out of it? Basically, let me write it in capital letters because people are not able to understand here. For some reason, I think people are not able to understand here. So let me write it in capital letters. Central government jobs, they do not have reservation. Okay. Let me tell you what they have. Let me tell you what they have. Basically, what they have is mainly Article 30. So what they have is mainly Article 30. What exactly is Article 30? So basically, the idea is if you are considered as a minority by the government of India, then you have the right to set up your education institutions and then run and administer those institutions without interference from the government. I'll give you an idea. Uh, you all would have heard of St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, very famous college, one of the most well-known colleges of India. So St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, it's a minority college set up by the Christian community. So they have freedom in the sense that they don't have to abide by the government's rules of SC, ST, OBC reservation because they have set up their college. So they have special reservation only for them. For example, they might have 60-70% Christian reservation. Their method of appointing teachers can be different. Their syllabus can be different as compared to other colleges of the Delhi University. Their working method may be different. They may have different types of prayers, etc. That is usually the exclusive right of minorities that the constitution gives. Let's first talk about the constitutional right. So constitution exclusively gives this right to the minority community. So the non-minority community, that is a Hindu religious community, Hindu religious community do not have this right of setting up these education institutions where you can have your own sort of administration. Number one. The second idea is even though you have the right to set up these education institutions, even then it does not allow you to administer it completely free of the government control. If the government thinks that the administration is not going well, if the government thinks that the institute is not working in the interest of the students, if the interest of the student is being compromised, then the government has a right to interfere. Because as you know, fundamental rights in India are not absolute. There may be one or two right against exploitation absolute, right against untouchability absolute, but again, most fundamental rights are not absolute in nature. So even Article 30 is not absolute. In Article 30 also, the government can interfere. For example, in St. Stephen's College, we did have a controversy a few years back because they changed the method of appointing teachers. Then the government interfered that no, this will reduce the quality of teachers, so we'll come into picture. So they came into picture, they had certain talk. So it's not that they will have complete immunity, but they do have fair bit of freedom in how will they have their own education institutions. Now, these two commissions that we are talking about, National Commission for Minority and National Commission for Women, for both of these, they are slightly different bodies. Why? They are mostly political in nature. They are mostly political in nature. Even the National Commission for Scheduled Caste, Scheduled Tribe, Backward Classes, they are political in nature. When I say political in nature, what I mean to say is their members are usually politicians. Their members or chairperson are usually actually politicians from the ruling party, not civil servants, not expert judges, etc. No, they're usually politicians. There is no rule about that. There is no eligibility criteria regarding that, but they are usually politicians only. So, for example, at present, you go and see who is the chairman of these commissions. You will see they are either ex MPs or MLAs of the BJP, ex ministers of the BJP. At the time of the Congress, it was a Congress members, ex-Congress members who are the leaders here. So it's a very political kind of an organization where you don't see representation from civil servants. You usually see representation from the people who are in the politics as such. So there's no eligibility criteria. It just says chairman, vice chairman, and 5 members nominated by the central government from people having eminence, ability, and integrity, which is found in all the politicians as we know right now. And the tenure is 3 years. So they serve a tenure of 3 years. At least 5 of these 7 should be from the minority community. So at least 5 have to be from the minority community. Their functions are pretty similar to the National Human Rights Commission, except the jail part, that they go to jail also to conduct inspection. If you remove the jail going part and conducting inspection, the jail part, you will see a lot of functions are kind of very similar. Like they evaluate the progress of laws for the protection of the minorities. They also have safeguards or look into safeguards of the Constitution of India. They make recommendations to the government how to implement better laws for the interests of the minorities. They can also take up complaints, just like the NHRC can take up complaints. They can also take up complaints and recommend action to the government. They can also look into problems of discrimination against the minorities. They can undertake research, analyze the issue, whether the minorities are being discriminated against or not. If they think that is the case, they can recommend some action to the center government. They can suggest to the government that if there is any specific minority that requires the help of the government. For example, if they think that Parsis require help of the government, so they may suggest that in the Parsi community, this is the problem. Uh, for example, in the Parsi community, there's a real problem of declining population. So Parsi community has a huge declining population. I don't know. Uh, have you heard of this? There's a scheme called Geo Parsi. It's an old scheme. Have you heard of this? Geo Parsi. It's an old government scheme. It has been some years now. I don't remember the exact year. It's pretty old scheme. So Geo Parsi again is a scheme to increase the population of Parsis. Parsis have a pretty unique kind of a problem. Lot of them decide not to marry for some reason. They don't marry. Many of them, let's say females, they marry to other religion. So basically, then the next generation becomes of other religion. So Parsi community, they are facing a declining population. So there is this scheme initiative launched, Geo Parsi. So again, these are the things that the Minority Commission does, not launch a scheme by themselves, suggest to the government that see these are the issues that we should look into, and you should start a kind of a suggestion or you kind of a scheme. Whether they want to accept or not, it is the prerogative of the government of India. They also make reports to the center government on the minority issue, talking about the difficulties faced by them, talking about the issues and suggestions that they have for the government. Now, there is one very interesting question that many people have in their mind. In the chat also, many people have this issue in their mind. There's a big debate in India. The debate is, should minorities be considered nationwide or nationwide one minority, or should minority be state-wise? That is a big debate in India. That is, overall, when you see, Hindus as a religion are not a minority because obviously their population is much more than others. However, if you look at state-wise data, there are states in India where the Hindus as a proportion of their population may be considered as minorities. These are those states. Look at Manipur, Punjab, Arunachal, Jammu Kashmir, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Ladakh. All these are states or UTs where Hindus are in a minority. Now, this is a big debate for a long, long time. The debate is simple. Can a Hindu in, let's assume, Meghalaya, set up an education institution and get the same protection or same kind of rights that St. Stephen's College gets in Delhi? Can the Hindus do it in Meghalaya, or can they do it in Ladakh? Can they do it in Jammu Kashmir, Arunachal, Punjab, or whatever? What is the answer? Answer is about midway in between. And I'll tell you why am I saying midway in between. So this question has been asked to the Supreme Court multiple times. What happened was, first, 2019. In 2019, a petition was filed in the Supreme Court exactly for this. The petition was that Hindus should get minority tag in at least some states, if not across the country, so that at least in those states they can also get the minority rights, they can also get this advantage. Supreme Court said no. In 2019, Supreme Court denied this. Why? The Supreme Court said that in India, if you look at India's history, states have been formed on the basis of language, while religion does not has any confinement to any state. This was the argument given by the Supreme Court, that religion is not state wise. We never carved out states on the basis of religion. We carved out states on the basis of language, so that may still make sense. But for religion, we should not have that. So in 2019, Supreme Court said no, this should not be done. Now, I'll tell you something very interesting. Let's assume today you file an application in the Supreme Court for something. Let's take an example. You file a PIL in the court today that, sir, UPSC exam should remove the optional subject. Something like that. Don't do it, but I'll just tell you an example. Let's say you go to Supreme Court, file a petition, sir, optional is too much, remove this. And Supreme Court says, no, we will not do it. The petition is dismissed. Now, what do? People who are not intelligent forget about this. But people who are intelligent, what do? They will wait for some time. Till the time that judge retires, the judge who gave the judgment, they will wait. That, okay, maybe this judge did not like the idea. Because Supreme Court has many judges, right? Maybe you will file a review petition, some other judge will come in, they may like the idea. So smart people wait for some time. They don't go immediately after that to review the petition, whatever. So this guy, smart guy, again waited. He said, okay, let me go after some time with the same idea. The same idea went in 2022 once again. Then asked to review the petition. And the Supreme Court then decided to change their verdict earlier. So about 11 months ago, in July 2022, the Supreme Court reversed their earlier view and they said that the status of minorities, religious minorities also should be state dependent. Should be state dependent. So the current status is that the Supreme Court has said that the minority status should be state dependent. However, there has not been any progress on this matter, meaning that after the Supreme Court judgment came in July last year, till today, no state has taken this initiative to announce that these are minorities in our state and they can set up the institutions. The center government also has not taken the initiative since the last 11 years to say that, okay, these are the minorities state-wise and you can set up institutions. So it's a very kind of a midway in between. Supreme Court has said that yes, minorities can be state dependent from now onwards. Now we have to see whether the state governments take the initiative and whether they do something about it or not, because so far it has not been done. That is the present status as of today. As of today, we do not see state governments or the center government taking the lead on this and saying that yes, minorities in our state include Hindus as well. Now it is your responsibility. Today is 27th of June 2023. From today till the day that you give the exam, if something happens in this regard, then it is your responsibility to keep a track of it. I am telling you the status so far. This is the status so far. That so far this has happened. If tomorrow, if after some days, some weeks, by the way, usually these things happen close to elections. So not right now. Let's say sometime before 2024. Let's say March, April 2024, you may have something. So if something like that happens, if some states go ahead, announce that from now onwards, Hindu also have minority tag in our state, that will be a progress and you will have to see if that happens or not. Till today, it has not happened. So now the responsibility is on you to slightly keep a track. Obviously, if it happens, we will be covering in the current affairs webinar, so you will be told about it. But keep a track. This is the present status so far. Okay. Then we have one more commission, National Commission for Women. What is National Commission for Women? What does it do? Okay, just one thing. Sahil is saying, isn't it contempt of court? No, Sahil. What contempt of court will be if the state say, no, we will not do it. Supreme Court says you can do it, and now the state decides whether they would have to go ahead or not. Supreme Court doesn't say now you have to do this. They have said Minorities can be state dependent. Now it depends on state and the center government to go ahead. Now the next commission having a similar kind of a job is the National Commission for Women. Similar kind of role as the Minority Commission, as the name suggests, looking into the reforms required by the women, registering complaints that women have, any issue that women face, they will be happy to assist them. Again, a statutory body formed in 1992. Again, a political body. Almost every time you will see head of the National Women Commission is a person from the ruling party only, almost always. And it is true with states also. Look at Delhi Commission for Women is headed by a lady who is the wife of a Aam Aadmi Party leader. So it is with states also, it is with center government also. These are usually political bodies in nature. So what is their objective? Similar, to give safeguards, suggest safeguards for women, look into whether the women related laws are being followed or not, suggest to the government to make good laws about them, facilitate grievance redressal means ensure that they have complaints, ensure that if they have complaints, they are resolved easily, advise the government on all the policy matters. All of these things are the suggestions given by the National Commission for Women to the government. Again, the keyword here will be the same. They only recommend. They will only recommend. Whether the government wants to accept them, whether the government does not want to accept them, really depends on them. But they will only recommend to the government. Again, an example of what do they do. Not that you have to remember this, but an example of what do they do. For example, you see this news. National Commission for Women bring out SOP on rescue and rehabilitation of trafficked girls. What is SOP? SOP, Standard Operating Procedure. Standard Operating Procedure. So, for example, let's assume that when police or this NGO like Bachpan Bachao Andolan, when they go and rescue some children or some girls, for example, who were forced into trafficking, who were forced into sex slave, when they are rescued, the police or the NGO does not know what to do next, where to take these girls. The girls don't have a family, they don't have a home to go back to. Where do they go then? Police can't bring them to locker. They are not the criminals. So what do they do? So to help them with that problem, the National Commission for Women have given guidelines. That is SOP, Standard Operating Procedure. Guidelines, that is, if you rescue girls, what do? You call on this helpline number, you call this NGO, they will help you, etc., etc. So again, this is the usual thing that they do. Helping girls, helping women when they are in such kind of a situation, when they require help from the government, suggesting the government what do, what not to do. Similar to other commissions, they have a chairman, 5 members. Again, it's very generic kind of a description here, but again, these are usually politicians only. So, women members who have been working in the field of women welfare for a long time. One of the members has to be from the SC/ST community, at least one of the members. It can be more, but at least one has to be from SC/ST community. It also has a member secretary. Secretary has a job of coordinating the meetings, helping them with the paperwork, administration, etc. So coordinating everything. For these kind of bodies, you are not asked about composition, etc. Because they are political in nature, UPSC does not really ask a lot of questions on them. If you read about NHRC, etc., that is important. For them, the questions are asked. But for these kind of bodies, in the prelims exam, you don't see questions. In the main, you still might see questions on them. Their functions, again, presenting annual report on condition of women, examining how the laws are working, looking into complaints. They also go to women jails, etc., suggest remedies to the government. Then this is extremely important. Funding litigation involving women issues. Litigation means court cases, basically. Court cases. So basically, let's take a situation. Let's say there is a married woman who is facing domestic violence. Now, if she wants to, let's say, take a divorce. Now, if you look at divorce cases, if the couple does not have a child, then the divorce cases are not that difficult. You don't require a big hotshot lawyer. You have a normal lawyer, you go to the magistrate will ask you for some time, remain separated, and then you're given the divorce. So not really a problem. But let's say when you have a divorce case where a child is involved, it becomes a big case because mother and father are fighting for the custody of the child. And then you need lawyers also to prove that your case is good, your case is bad. So now let's assume there's a woman who wants a divorce for whatever reasons, domestic abuse or whatever. Now she has to fight the case in the court. She is a housewife, doesn't have her own money, not being supported by the family. So would she be able to support a lawyer or not? Would she able to get a lawyer or not? So in these cases, what happens is these women are expected, or they can come to the National Commission for Women, and this National Commission for Women will help arrange a lawyer. Either they will come in touch with a lawyer who would be willing to do it pro bono. You know what is pro bono? Athar will know. What is pro what is pro bono? Yeah, pro bono is free. Pro bono means free. Basically free. You do it because you feel for that issue. You do it because you want to help someone. That is called pro bono. So it's a word used in legal language, but it is used in other places as well. You do it pro bono. So they either try to find a lawyer who can do it pro bono, who can do it free, or if not, let's say they try to arrange some funds, at least give something to a lawyer, expense of traveling, coming from here to here, expense for some expense for services, etc. So that is what they do. Try and see if they can help. So they don't promise that in every case women will get free lawyer. That is not what they promise, but they at least try that when women related issues are involved, they will help with finding lawyers, good lawyers, arrange the fee, or have lawyers working for them pro bono. They also conduct studies, research for women rights, again, like the other organizations, helping the government suggest some measures, how to improve them, how to make sure that it can be done better. What is this? This is the Citizen Starter for National Commission for Women. See how smart, I'm connecting two topics. For you to revise, there's something called Citizen Starter. Remember, we read Citizen Starter long time back. There used to be a time when we read this. So again, Citizen Starter for National Commission for Women. You don't have to remember this, just like other charters, but just to remind you what Citizen Starter was. See, their vision, helping women, their mission, have equal participation of women in all spheres of society, making sure that they are handling most of the problems relating to women, their functions, what do they do, what do they not do, time period, etc. So it's a short version of the charter that I wanted to show you. This is also something that they usually do. So again, National Commission for Women working in a same kind of a manner. What are their issues? Again, you can just copy paste these issues on other organizations as well. No one will get to know. Everyone will think you're a very smart guy. But all of these issues exist in all these organizations. Number one, they're only recommending. They don't have the power to actually go ahead and make transfers, suspension, etc. They don't have a constitutional status. All of these are statutory in nature. The difference being, if they would have been constitutional, then they would have had more independence. They would have freedom that they can't be removed easily. They also would have known that, or they would have confidence that the government can't just remove them, can't just make changes. Dependence on the government for funds like the NHRC, and political interference as well. As I said, not the NHRC, but the other two bodies that we saw are mostly political in nature. Governments who are in the power, political parties who are in the power, try to control them. Because, see, when you file a complaint to any of these agencies against someone who is either from the ruling party or who is close to the ruling party, you will not see any action being taken. I will not give any example, but you know the examples. So, again, if you see, and this is true with every government, it's not just one government or two government, every political party, you will see the same kind of a thing, where people in power, if you file a complaint against them, there's hardly any action taken. So again, that is where you see a problem that exists, and this exists across the governments. There is no one single government in the history of independent India where you can say, oh, this was an ideal government. They never did anything wrong. All the governments at the end of the day have utilized this power, whatever powers they have, to meet their own goals. That is how everyone behaves when they come to power. When you will get power, you will also behave the same way. Trust me, that is human nature. It's just about choosing between very bad and less bad and maybe slightly bad. But you can't say any government is ideal that this is what they should do. So you have seen political interference in almost every kind of a government. You will not see cases going on when one government is in power against those who are in power. All of a sudden, government changes. You will see all the cases coming up once again. All these are issues that remain. Perfect. Before I go ahead, let me take some questions quickly. Then we'll take a break and then we'll go ahead with this. Those who want to take a break, go. Bye. Let me take some questions, then I'll take the break. Mithun is saying you taught a lot. You taught about a lot of organization. If a question comes like critically examine, how should we write? Mithun, critically examine what? The question cannot just be critically examine full stop. Critically examine what? Not sure what the question is. Critically examine what? Mithun is giving me one word at a time. Now he is saying role. Critical examine role. Baba, write one question properly. What is this one word in one statement? I am punishing you. My punishment is next 10 minutes, I will not listen to any of your statements. This is your punishment. Let me look at something else then. Sahil has a question. Does the states also have bodies like these? Yes, states have bodies like this. Not the minority one, but states have women commission of their own. They have state human rights commission of their own as well. Ashu, you have the PPT yourself, na? So you can go to any slide that you want, read it multiple times. Then I have a question. Vishal is saying, in terms of law or legal fight, what are the advantages of having a constitutional status over statutory status? See, as I said yesterday also, the only difference in constitutional status or statutory status is that if you're a constitutional body, government cannot randomly make changes because it is very difficult for the government. They have to amend the constitution for making even the smallest of changes. So a constitutional amendment will be required to change anything because you are a constitutional body. So you have more independence. It's like saying that you are a kid, you can do whatever you want in home. You will only be punished if your father plus your mother plus your grandfather plus your grandmother agrees. Only then you will be punished. If you are a statutory kid, then if only the mother wants, she can punish you all alone. But if you're a constitutional kid, your punishment will be if all these four agree. So you know the chances of all these four agreeing are lesser, right? One of them will be on your side. So if you're a constitutional body, you can't don't write these example in the mains exam. It is just me telling you, explaining you, right? UPSC examiner will not understand. They are not that close to you. So let it be between you and me. Just an explanation. Anjan is saying, what are think tanks? So Anjan, think tanks are organizations that do some research for the government and then they suggest to the government. I'll give you an example. There is a organization, I don't know how many of you know this, you might not have. If you work in the field of education, you might have heard of something called Center Square Foundation. Center Square Foundation. Have you heard of this? Maybe not. So this is an organization, Central Square, sorry, Central Square Foundation. So it is a kind of an organization that works in the field of education. So basically, I'll give you an idea of what they do. They're kind of a think tank. And Niti Aayog, as many people are saying, that is also a think tank that works for the government primarily. So I'll give you an example. So what happens? Let's assume the government has announced that we will double the farmer's income. Okay? In 5 years, we'll double the farmer's income. Now, how will the government do that? So government will then ask the Niti Aayog that we have announced you have to double farmers' income. Now you tell us, you have 2 months, make a plan. How can we do that? What kind of laws to be made? You'd suggest, and then we will implement. That is what a think tank does. It thinks on behalf of the government, makes policies to achieve the goals of the government, suggests to the government, and then government may or may not implement that. That is a think tank. So for Central Square Foundation, let's say government calls them up and the government says that we want to, let's say, increase India's literacy rate from 75 to 95%. Now tell us how to do that. So they will make a plan, they will do a research, and they'll present a plan to the government. That is what a think tank does. May or may not be accepted by the government, but that is what a think tank does. There's a question from Beauty. Why government not give independence to all these bodies? Beauty, I have answered this question earlier as well. It's not that government is not giving independence to these bodies. The simple argument is, why would the government want to give away their powers? Everyone, by human nature, wants to concentrate power in their own hands. The more independence the government gives to them, how will the government control their working? Government does not want them to file cases against government's ministers, right? So government wants to control them. That's why they don't get them independence. On that note, let's take a break. Let's be back at 7:15 and we will be beginning from here. Thank you, guys. So back to this slide, okay? I'm going slightly ahead because of an example and I'll come back to this. Yeah. So see here, this is the logo of a very famous organization working in the US called the National Rifle Association. It's a very famous pressure group. Let me explain what does it do so that you will be able to understand the overall idea of the pressure group. US has a big problem. The problem of gun violence. Do you know US is the only country in the world that has more guns as compared to people? Per 100 population, they have about 130 guns. So 1.3 guns for every single person. That is the amount of guns that they have. In US, you don't require a special license to keep a gun like you do in India. For most of the guns in US, you can just go to a supermarket like Big Bazaar, D-Mart, Walmart, go buy a gun, come out, that is it. You don't even require a special license. So keeping a gun in US extremely common. Because of that, there has been a lot of gun related violence in the US. Every month you keep on seeing shooting, people shooting in the schools, shooting in the malls, out in the open. Now, all these things, whenever it happens, whenever a gun violence starts, there is always a demand in the US that the government should make a law to make it difficult for the people to buy a gun. However, over many years, despite people demanding it, that the government should make it a law, government should make it difficult for people to buy a gun, they have not been able to pass this law. And the credit to this, or you can say the reason for this, is this organization called NRA, National Rifle Association. Now, the NRA or the National Rifle Association acts as a pressure group. So, what do they do? They are a very powerful organization. It's a collection of all the gun making companies in the US coming together to make this organization. They influence the lawmakers, the MPs who have to vote for that kind of a law. They either influence them illegally by giving a bribe or many times legally also. How legally? For example, they will tell a member of parliament that you vote in our favor for the bill and we will build a hospital in your area. You can tell your voters, see, I have built such a big hospital free of cost for everyone, so that you can then get votes the next time. All legal, nothing illegal. They can tell the member of parliament that don't worry, we will build a school for you free of cost, and you can go and tell your voters that, see, I build a school for you. So you can win elections. So this NRA, National Rifle Association, it puts pressure on the members of parliament to vote in their favor. Either vote in their favor because of a bribe or because of this. In America, it happens why? Because in America, there is no anti-defection law. So if you are from a Democrat party as a member of parliament, even then you can vote against the bill of the Democrat party, nothing will happen. That allows the NRA to act as a pressure group. They create pressure on the government not to pass a law to make it difficult for people to buy guns. That is how pressure groups usually work. Now, coming back to the original idea of the pressure groups. Now, in India, there is no specific law about pressure groups. In other words, in India, you cannot officially register your organization as a pressure group. No. However, a lot of organizations work as a pressure group in India. What exactly is a pressure group? In simple terms, any group that has the ability to pressurize the government either to pass a certain law or not to pass a certain law, either to make a certain rule or not to make a certain rule, that will be called a pressure group. I given this example earlier as well, making of Lokpal, forcing the government to have a Lokpal, again an example of pressurizing the government, forcing the government to bring back farm laws, again an example of pressure group. So pressure groups are those that pressurize the government to either pass a law that they want or not to pass a law that they do not want. Either way, that is how the pressure groups work. As I said, in India, we do not have a law under which any group can register with the government as a pressure group. But many associations, many unions, even media organizations, all of them work as a pressure group as and when the time comes. They try to pressurize the government, persuade the government in some way or the other to ensure that they put pressure on them and they ask the government or convince the government to do something that they want. They are usually political in nature because at the end of the day, they have to convince the politicians only to work in their favor. So they are political in nature mainly. They are informal groups because there is no law in India that recognizes the pressure groups. Now, what is the role that they perform? It is wrong to assume that pressure groups will always be negative. Depending upon which side you are, you may think the pressure groups are positive or negative. Let's take an example of the farm bills. Those people who wanted the government to take back the farm bill, they would think the pressure groups did a very good job. Those people who supported the farm bill would be against the pressure groups, such as the farm unions, etc. So, pressure groups do play a role of positive and negative nature depending upon which side do you stand, which side do you want to support. Pressure groups act as a link between the government and the people. Like, look at the Lokpal bill. People, a lot of them wanted a Lokpal bill to be introduced, but they did not know how to keep their voice or how to raise their voice to the government so that the government hears them. So pressure groups such as India Against Corruption as a NGO came into picture. They started pressurizing the government. So pressure groups in many cases take the demands of the people and bring it to the government, make some noise so that the government can actually hear. In many cases, they act as the voice of common people, express the view of minorities. Now, over here, minorities doesn't mean religious minorities or linguistic minorities. Over here, minorities means voters of the opposition party, many. So maybe let's say those people who have voted against the government. Governments usually don't listen to them. Governments think that they anyways are not our voters. What do we have to do? But pressure groups raise their voice because the governments may usually not pay a lot of attention to those voters who usually have not supported the government. They may also have experts in certain field to provide suggestions to the government. Like for example, let's say in case of Lokpal bill, There may be people who have been working in this field. They can suggest to the government, please do this, please do not do this. But it depends on the government at the end of the day. Do they want to implement this law or suggestion or not? Why are pressure groups successful in many countries, including India? The reason why pressure groups are successful, or the reason why pressure groups are able to do their job, is only when they get support of the public. I have told this to you earlier as well. Every single time, whenever you ask me, sir, why the government does not give power to CVC, why the government does not fill up the vacancies, why don't we have a strong Lokpal? My answer always was, government will only do it when they think they will get the votes, right? Or the government will only not do it if they think they will lose out on the votes. As simple as that. The equation in front of any government has to be in the form of votes. There is a joke. Ask any politician what is 2 plus 2. Their answer will be 4 votes. So, in terms of politics, the answer is always in the form of votes. So, when they have large enough population that cares for an issue, that is when the governments usually try to bring a change. Lokpal, be it this, be it the farm laws, or whatever example that you can think of in the past. Only when you have big enough population caring about an issue that you see a change. Similar is the case with the pressure groups. The reason why they may have an impact is that they have large support base that can convince the government that if the government does not do this, the government might have to pay the price. Now, there are different types of organizations in India that can work as pressure group, that have worked as pressure group in the past. I'll give you a few examples. Remember, none of these are officially registered as pressure groups. Remember this, because no law in India allows you to register as a pressure groups. These are associations, organizations for different purposes, but they also act as pressure group whenever they require. So, for example, we have FICCI, we also have CII, where the biggest businessmen, the biggest business honchos in India, they are the members. They've talked to the government about business policies, what business policy to make, what not to make, how to improve the ease of doing business, etc. We have trade unions, we have agriculture related groups, etc., like the Bharatiya Kisan Union. They were the ones protesting against the government. We have Indian Medical Association. For example, when the government passed a law that every doctor has to compulsorily serve in the rural areas no matter what for some years, they started protesting against that no, we will not allow that. So again, these pressure groups have or employ various tactics to pressurize the government. When Indian Federation of Working Journalists think that journalists are in danger, when the government is arresting journalists without a reason, they will start to protest, they will start to put pressure against the government. There are student organizations like ABVP, religious organizations, the names of religion, caste, trade. These are just a few examples. These are not the only one. There are other many other organizations. You, 10 of you people, 100 of you people can walk on the road, pressurize the government to make a law. You can be called a pressure group also. So it's not that pressure groups have to be registered somewhere. You go start a protest tomorrow, take back optional, take back CSAT, and see if the government does it. Then in the next batch, I will teach the students. Example of you, see that was a pressure group, the last batch. So again, that is how the pressure groups work. You go ahead and then you do it. You pressurize the government into making the policy that you want. It will become a pressure group, as simple as that. So again, this is how the pressure groups usually work. They employ a lot of tactics to force the government or pressurize the government to do what they want to do. They sway public policy. Sway means influence. I'll give you an example. Let's take an example. So, in many countries around the world, like Japan, etc., there is a demand starting now that we should have a 4-day work week and not 5 days. There's a demand that has started that we should have a 4-day week for working people. and not 5. Japan has accepted that, many others have accepted that. Now tell me this, if the government of India wants this, would FICCI support this? Would they allow this to happen? Would FICCI say, yes, 4 days, leave 4, have 3 days, why even have to come to office? Would they support this? Obviously not. Why would they support it? They are businessmen paying salary to you. They would want you to work for 8 days in a week if that is possible. So why would they want that? So if any such demand, for example, comes in, they will pressurize the government not to do that. That no, this will go against our interest. That is how the pressure groups operate. That you bring in new initiatives, but they will try to change the public policy in their direction. Now, pressure groups are in democratic countries and in non-democratic countries also. Look at what happened in Iran, where there was such a huge protest against the morality police. Have you heard about, you would have read about this? The killing of Mahsa Amini, it became very big issue and she was killed by the so-called morality police. In Iran, people started protesting that this morality police or religious police should be disbanded. It became a big issue. So pressure groups exist in many, many other countries. It's not just India, it's not just democratic countries. Many countries give them the space to exist. Many countries don't give them the space to exist. Like China does not give them the space to exist. In China, you protest against the government, next day you know, no one will know that you ever existed. So these are kind of things that exist in some countries, but some totalitarian countries, for example, do not allow these things to happen. Pressure groups push for favorable government policies. It may be for their members, it may be for the larger public interest, but they help all these government policies. Now, there are some issues with the pressure groups as well. There are a lot of issues that still exist. First, they are mostly biased. Obviously, they will do what they think is good for their members. Why would they do something which is not good for their members? The entire purpose of forming a pressure group is to look in their own interest. If you like that, you will be happy. If you don't like that, you will not be happy. As simple as that. But they are mostly biased. Rather than thinking for the larger public interest, like the example of National Rifle Association as I gave you. They are making, or they are stopping the government from making a law so that they can keep on earning money. If the government makes it difficult to buy a gun, their profit will decline. So it is in the personal interest that they are doing it. Many of them spread propaganda. What is propaganda? What is propaganda? Propaganda means basically fake news or false news. Like the National Rifle Association in US is able to convince everyone in the US that your life is in danger. If you don't have a gun, someone will come to your house and kill you. You will not have anything to defend. You should buy a gun. Buy ration later on, buy petrol later on. That is a luxury, but buying a gun is the most basic thing. You have to do it no matter what. Otherwise, you will be killed. Then don't tell us we did not tell you. They run ads in the paper. They run ads on the media. They hire influencers, all to spread that propaganda. Adolf Hitler was a master of spreading propaganda. He spread this propaganda that Jews are the reasons for our decline. We are poor because the Jews are rich. Unless we get rid of the Jews, we will not survive. That is the propaganda he was spreading. And see, it led to so many people saying that he has killed the Jews. And it led to the biggest genocide in the world history. So spreading propaganda means when you spread false information to the minds of the people so much in detail that people start believing it. So many pressure groups do this as well. They start pressurizing or they start spreading fake news, they start spreading news that is not really true. Then they distort public opinion. The same thing. Many people who criticize the Lokpal agitation, there are many people who are against the Lokpal agitation. They said that The people who are supporting the Lokpal bill actually hid a lot of information from the people. They presented a story like India has no authority to fight corruption. They never told people we also have the CVC, we also have the other authorities who will fight for corruption. They presented a picture in the public that India is the most corrupt country. We have nothing to fight against corruption. If Lokpal doesn't come into the picture, nothing will happen. India will be in declining. So they presented a public picture which was not true, to instill fear in the minds of the people, to convince the people that you have to accept this. That's distorting public opinion. They also use lobbying for promotion. What is lobbying? In India, lobbying, etc., is not a legal profession. In US, etc., many people are lobbyists. What is a lobbyist? What do they do? Basically, lobbyist is kind of a, I would say, agent or an intermediate person who will take your voice to the people concerned. I'll give you a simple example. Let's assume that you want to get in touch with a minister for licensing or whatever purposes. You want to get in touch with the minister. Now, you don't know how to get in touch with the minister. You don't know how to do that. What do? You find a person who is a lobbyist. They will have contacts with the minister. They will talk to the minister on your behalf. They will try to have the minister have a meeting with you. That is a lobbyist. In US, etc., it's a proper profession. In US, lobbyists are very powerful people. They have a lot of connections. In India, illegally, you might have that. But if you see in India, it's not an official profession as such. Lobbyist. So they bring your voice, or they form a connection between you and the people who are in power, you who are not accessible very easily. The NRA example that I just gave you. This was the pressure groups thing that you had to understand. Before we go ahead and start a discussion with NGOs and self-help groups, let me take a few questions quickly. Joginder is saying, what are the suggestions to have a powerful NHRC? Joginder, as I said earlier as well, whatever problems you write, just write opposite to it. It automatically becomes suggestions. As simple as that. So the problem is they don't have enough funds. Suggestion is give them enough funds. The problem is their recommendation not accepted by the government. Suggestion can be government should accept the recommendation. So whatever problems we discuss, right opposite to it, that becomes suggestion. Simple. Mrityunjay Singh, is LTT pressure group? LTT is a terrorist group. Was a terrorist group, not a pressure group. Vivek is saying RSS is an example of pressure group. Yes, you can say that. Yashika saying, if pressure groups are illegal, what is the government's call for them? Yashika, I'm not saying they're illegal. I did not say that. I said right now there is no option for you to register your group with the government as a pressure group, that we are a pressure group. You can register yourself as an NGO, then you can work as a pressure group. You can register yourself as a charitable organization, work as a pressure group. What I said was there is no law in India that allows you to register yourself as a pressure group. That doesn't mean it is illegal. You can call yourself as a pressure group, nothing will happen. But there's no legal definition right now of being a pressure group. I have one suggestion for you, and suggestion and request also. I see a lot of times you ask a question and the SME gives you the answer, but you still just copy paste the same question. It is very unfair to the SME and to the other students as well. So if you have asked a question, the SME has answered that, just read that answer, right? There is no point pasting it time and time again. It is not fair for everyone that you are just populating the chat. So be careful of that. Ethics is about to start. Let's be ethical before the subject begins. It will be easier for you to understand the subject, right? So let's not do that. If you are given the answer by the SME, there's a reason why you're giving the answer, right? You can't have that, no, I want the answer again and again and again and again. That does not happen, right? And I will not take names. You know who you are. So I'll not take any names. You know who you are. If you have been given the answer by SME, why don't just read it and accept it? If you don't, Know what is that, then you can ask cross question, but you can't repeat the same question if you have been already given the answer, right? No, I will not take ethics. Ethics will be with some other teacher, but that teacher should at least see now the people are slightly ethical in this class. Pooja is saying, can pressure groups be a part of larger politics of the parties? Again, pressure groups are not legally recognized in India. Although pressure groups, whoever, whichever group works as a pressure group, that is a part of politics only. As I said, tomorrow, 100 of your friends can go to the market, start demanding something from the government. If the government accepts it, you become a pressure group automatically. You can call yourself a pressure group, as simple as that. Uh, okay, then Labdi Singh, is independence and autonomy the same or different? It's almost the same. You can use independence or autonomy, both of these will work. Monto saying pressure groups are not under sedition. Monto, sedition is charged against everyone, individual, so they are all under sedition. Again, please understand pressure groups don't have a proper definition, don't have a proper recognition in India. Please do remember that. Okay. Then Rahul is saying pressure groups only insist the government. Rahul, then just tell me who will the pressure group insist then? If they don't insist the government, who will they insist? The opposition. Insist them to do what? They can't do anything anyways. If your father has the money to give you, will you insist your father or you will insist your friend to give you the money? You insist someone who has the power to give you the money, right? So there's no point insisting someone else. Who will you insist? You can't insist your teacher to give you the money. You'll insist your parents, right? So you insist where the insistence will work, right? Okay, let's go ahead then. The next thing that we want to discuss, a couple of extremely important topics: the role of NGOs and the role of self help groups in India, India's development, India's story of growth. Where do they fit in? What is the role that they play? We'll start with NGOs. NGO means non government organization. Non government organization. The simple idea is those organizations which have not been formed by the government but play a role which is really close to the government, like giving welfare to the people, doing the job that the government should supposed to do, helping in the government working. That is called an NGO. Like you make an NGO and you give food to the poor people, because the government responsibility was. You make an NGO, you start educating poor people, again something that the government should do. You make an NGO, you help people with their cases if they're poor people. So again, NGOs are organizations not founded or not formed by the government, formed outside the government, but they are doing something which is the government's work, which the government is supposed to do usually. Now, there are different types of NGOs. Mainly, you can say NGOs are self serving and society serving. Self serving, which work for their members only, which work for their members only. For example, all of you have a park nearby you live. Some people will live nearby a park, some people would have park far away. You will see in the morning there are some senior citizens who come to walk and then run, etc. So they form a group. Let's see, these 50 senior citizens form a group in the park. They have their own gupshup, etc. And then they decide, let us make a group, let us make an NGO. Why? So that if one of us falls ill, one of us requires help, then he or she may just ping us on the WhatsApp group and we will come for your help. That is an example of NGO only. Non-government organization formed for the welfare of the people, but welfare of only the internal members of the group. That's a self-serving NGO that serves only the members, not the outsiders. The NGOs that you usually know, which are famous in India, are society serving. Means they serve not their members but the society at large. There are many NGOs in the healthcare sector, education sector, environment, a lot of them. There's so many examples that you can think of. Uh, some at the top of my mind, there's an NGO called Teach for India. A lot of them. There's an NGO called Goonj, then the Akshay Kalp, yeah, Pratham also. There is Robin Hood. So there are so many of them. Again, I'm not saying one or two. There are so many of them. You would also know. Yes, Bachpan Bachao Andolan, Doctor Without Borders. All of these are NGOs, basically working in the interest of the people at large, not just for their own members. All of them had different things. Some focus on education, some healthcare, etc. Now, the question is, why do we need an NGO? Why do we need an NGO? Why do we have it? Uh, okay. Sakshi, I have been a fellow of TFI. So just to tell you that, I'm very happy to see you here. I have been a fellow of TFI. That is why I gave this example. Anyway, let's come back here. So one example of why we need the NGO, let's take that example into account. So basically, if you actually see why do we need an NGO? See, we ignore the fact India is a huge country. So we have a huge population, but we ignore the fact that along with the population, we also have a huge area. Along with the population, we also have a huge area to cover. So we have the widest of, the most elusive of the forest. We have areas where the government facilities have still not reached. We still have areas where there's not proper electricity connection. We still have areas without water proper supply. So there are areas where still the government facilities have not reached, and this is where NGOs come into the picture, where they fill in those small gaps. That is why the NGOs are required in a country such as India, filling in those small gaps, making sure that they are helping the government. So they act as different types of organization in different areas. For example, some of them are civil rights advocacy organization. I'll give you an example. Have you heard of something called the NAS Foundation? Have you heard of something called the NAS Foundation? Ever? Okay. If you have, great. If you have not heard of it, this was the organization that filed the case that led to decriminalization of homosexuality in India. So they were the ones who started this case in Delhi High Court, where Delhi High Court for the first time decriminalized homosexuality in India. So they fight cases for the interest of the transgenders, they fight cases for the interest of the LGBTQ community. So what they do is they are a civil rights organization supporting people to have their civil rights. Similarly, there are farmer groups like Bharatiya Kisan Union, etc., who protested against the government to take back the farm bills. There are business industry based civil society organizations like the FICCI example that we just took. There are labor unions in different spheres. There are media organizations. There are international peace also, like Red Cross, etc., Doctor Without Borders. All these are international organizations to bring peace around the world. There are also resource conservation organizations, like the ones working in the field of environment, for example, for conservation of environment, like Greenpeace. So there are a lot of different types of organization that we see in the society, all of them focusing on a certain area of their choice. Some in the field of education, some in the field of some other thing, some in the field of something else. Now, what are the benefits out of NGOs? Why does a society require NGOs, or why a country like India benefits from NGOs? The first example I gave you, to have the last mile reach. Because India is such a vast, humongous country, the government sources, the government schemes, the government initiatives might not reach till the last stage. And this is where the NGOs come in and help the people. For example, when the COVID-19 lockdown saw the entire country locked up, there were many NGOs that came in, helped people, supplying ration, giving them help as much as possible. So, for that last mile connectivity, reaching the end consumer, they also act as a voice of the citizen. A lot of times, especially in the rural areas, if someone has a problem, they are not being able to get benefit of a government scheme. They don't know who to approach. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to file a complaint. Many NGOs come in to help them, assist them, tell them how to file a complaint, make them empowered so that they can actually get what they deserve. Many NGOs assist government policies. For example, let's say the government of India has this polio vaccination program. For polio vaccination program, for example, many NGOs work to spread polio vaccine as much as possible. NGOs played a huge role in making India polio free. NGOs also, for example, let's say government of India announced that we want everyone to open up a bank account, like under the Jan Dhan Yojana. Now, how will you ensure that everyone gets government information? How will you ensure everyone has access to bank? This is also where NGOs play a very important role to spread government policies, to tell people about it. Then they act as bridge between government and citizens, again in the same manner, bringing government policies to the people, bringing them all the benefits. If they have a problem, maybe assisting them, helping them to get all the benefits that they require, be it the law, education, and all of these kind of things. They also help in capacity building. Capacity building means skill development. So a lot of NGOs train people in the rural areas on some new skill. Let's say they train someone into tailoring, making something by hand, creating something else, some art, maybe being a mechanic, all these kind of things, where the NGOs build capacity, build the skill of an individual, allowing them to earn for a long time. It is always said that when you give someone a fish, you are feeding them for a day. But when you teach someone how to fish, you are giving them food for entire lifetime. That's a big difference. That is why it said that you just help someone once, you're helping them for that time period. But if you give them the skill so that they can now start earning themselves, this is where the real help comes in, so that they can be self dependent. This is where the NGOs come into the picture. However, not everything is hunky dory in in okay. Anu wants me to give an example of vegetarian. Okay, let me give a vegetarian example. If you feed someone potato, you are just feeding them for one day. But you teach them how to grow potato, that means you are giving them lifetime of diabetes, carbohydrates, and a lot of food. So that's a vegetarian example. Okay, let's come back then. So sorry, please go and eat potato. Don't stop eating potato just because I'm telling you. Okay, yeah. Anushka, there's an I in your name, so I got confused. Perfect. So let's talk about the challenges to the NGO. So there are many challenges that still remain in the NGO sector, because of which they have not been able to ensure that they achieve their full potential. First, lack of transparency, lack of accountability. Let's understand how the NGOs get money. How do they work? If an NGO says we will give free education to someone, free food to someone, but NGOs have to get some money, right? From where do they get the money? Mainly, they depend on donations. They depend on donations by, like, good people like you, although there are very few individuals donate to NGOs, but maybe you do. But mainly they depend on donations to the corporate sector. Why does the corporate donate here? This is where there is something called CSR, or corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility. Now, there is something called the 2% law in India. There is something called the 2% law in India. Now, let's understand what is CSR. The idea of CSR, corporate social responsibility, is companies that are big companies in India making a lot of profit. They are big companies, or they are making profit because of the society. People have helped them, people have allowed them to earn money. So these companies have a responsibility towards the society as well. These companies have a responsibility to make sure that they give back to the society. That is why many companies do a lot of social work. It is called CSR, corporate social responsibility. We now have a law in India And the law is mainly about how much money or what is it that you actually have to give, or how much money should you spend when it comes to CSR activities. It is called the 2% law, and I'm giving this as a homework to you. Just do a Google search and you will get to know what companies are covered under this. There is a proper mechanism, there's a proper guideline. How much profit you make, will you come under this? How much turnover that you have, you will come under this. How much is your value, or how much is the valuation, etc., you will come under this. So basically, some big companies come under this. And if you are in this, for example, let's say if you make a profit of 5 crore or more in a year, then at least 2% of the profit that you make, at least 2%, you have to spend in CSR, corporate social responsibility. CSR. Now, what is CSR? Government of India decides which sectors will be called CSR. They decide the list. For example, right now, list includes education, healthcare, sanitation, environment. So, and there is other list also, or there are other things also included in the list. So, as a company, if you are under this level, you have to spend 2% of your profit on any of these. Either you do it yourself. That is why you will see many big companies have opened up their NGOs, have opened up a lot of things, like Reliance has Reliance Foundation, Airtel has Bharti Foundation. So they spend money through there. Or what they do is they give this money to some NGO that you do the work. We don't want to get involved in this. Now, 2% of big companies is also a huge amount of money. Like ONGC, look at ONGC, the profit that they make. ONGC's profit is thousands of crores of rupees. So even 2% of that is a lot of money. So they give a lot of their money to NGOs, etc. So NGOs basically come in and take that money. The problem here is a lot of NGOs are not very transparent with how they are utilizing the funds, where is the money going. They are not very efficient, they are not very accountable. They are not government organizations, so they know auditing, etc., is in their own hands. Although when big companies donate to you, they will audit your account. But many companies don't audit the account because it's a requirement. They have to spend 2% money. So there's many issues of accountability, transparency missing in NGOs. There's a problem of malpractice as well. I'll give you a real example of my own life. Okay, this is a real example of my own life. So this happened about, I would say, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, I think, no, not 5 years ago, 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, there was this case that happened. So my wife used to work in a very small NGO, not now, but she used to work in a very small NGO. So there was a person that we knew, just hi, hello, living in the same society, not more than that, not great friend, but just hi, hello. This person knew where I work. This person knew where my wife works in the small NGO. So this person one day just walking comes to our place, and this is the first time we are talking to him. And he says, "Hi, how are you?" And he says that I have a business proposal for you. And we said, "What is a proposal?" Now this guy was rich because I knew from the car that he drives, so I knew this much. Now he says, "I have a business proposal for you." What was the proposal? And it's all real. He says that I have a client. So this guy tells us, I have a client who runs a big business. He wants to donate 40 crore rupees to your NGO. Okay? You take 40 crore rupees to your NGO because that is, he has to invest 2% of that, 2% of the profit. The condition that he has is you return 30 crore in cash. You return 30 crore in cash. That was his condition. Remaining 10 crore, whatever you do, we don't care. We will not ask questions, do whatever you want. That's a real example. We did not take it if that is what you wanted to ask, because the NGO where she works is a pretty small NGO. Their budget is not even that much. So what will they do? But I'm trying to give an example of how, even just imagine in real life, just barely you know the person offering something like this, okay, we'll give you 40, give us 30 back in cash, take 10. Now imagine at larger scale what would be happening in businesses and NGOs. Because see, for these big companies, even 2% of their profit is a huge amount. Understand that. When you talk about thousands of crores, even 2% is a huge amount. You would want to save every single penny. So that is where the problem starts. The individuals also donate to NGO to avoid taxes, and then they ask them to bring them back in the form of cash. Because whatever donation you do to NGO, it is free of tax. You will not be paying any taxes. So then you ask the NGO return me in cash so that it is unaccounted cash. So there are a lot of malpractices attached with the NGO sector. Also, because there is no external auditing, internally they have their own auditing, they may have their own CA, but obviously there are so many NGOs in India that you don't really pay attention to what is happening there. They're unorganized in their working. Now, what do you mean by unorganized? Let's take a simple example. You have paid for a course here at Byju's. It is my responsibility when the clock is 5 p.m., the teacher will come and start teaching. Let's say randomly at 5 p.m., the teacher does not come. Why? Because I don't like coming. Someday teacher will come, other day teacher will not come. Would that happen? No, because there is a responsibility that we have towards you. Now let's take an example. I run an NGO, and what do? I go to the slums to teach children. Now I go today, for 2 days I will go click all the photos and post on social media, see what a great person I am. Third day I don't go. Fourth day I don't go. Fifth day I go for half an hour, then come back. Now tell me, would people in the slums have the option to complain against me? No, they have not paid me anything. Why would they complain? I would think that even if I give them 2 days, they should thank me, right? That is what my state of mind would be, right? If I give them 2 days, they should thank me because I am not accountable to them. I did not promise them anything. That is how most of the NGOs work, because they are not accountable, because they are not the government. They did not take any money. So they think that we are not accountable. We will do it when we want to go, we will go. If we don't want to go today, we will not go. So that becomes a problem. Unorganized in their working. Funds are diverted. I just gave a real example of my own life. How funds are diverted. NGOs are used as a way to generate black money. You give money, then you take back in cash. It becomes a big problem. And they also at times act as impediment in development. What is the impediment? Impediment means they stop the development of the country. How or why? In the last few years, you would have seen the news, many NGOs have been banned by the government of India. The government says NGOs are stopping India's development. Many NGOs have been banned time and time again, especially in the past few years. I'll give you an example. There's an NGO you might have heard of called Greenpeace. There's an NGO you might have heard of called Greenpeace. Now, Greenpeace is not an Indian NGO, it's an international NGO, works in various countries around the world. They basically work on environment issues. They work on environment related issues. So what they do, they find any government starting a project which will harm the environment, they will try to stop that. Let's take a real example. Let's say the government of India announced we want to build a big hydropower dam to generate electricity. To build a dam, a lot of people will have to be displaced. Government will ask the people, please leave your house, we will give you money, go somewhere else, we'll give you money, don't worry. This Greenpeace NGO will come to that village and tell the people, no, 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 don't go. Government is giving you only 2 lakh. You deserve 2 crore. Don't leave your house. Your house is worth 2 crore, not 2 lakh. You just stay with us. We will protest on your behalf. You don't go anywhere. So the government says that these NGOs deliberately try to stop India's development. The government says they are getting funds from outside India. They don't want India's development. So we will not allow them. So it's a perennial fight between the government and the NGOs, where the NGOs say we are fighting for the interests of the people. Government says we are the government, we know what is the interest of the people, you don't tell us. So government has banned a lot of NGOs in the past, calling them as impediment in development, calling them as a roadblock in the development of the country. All these are various examples. Now, to understand this problem, you also have to understand a big part of the problem that government has. The problem is foreign funding. The government specially keeps an eye on those NGOs that are getting funds from outside the country. The government does not like when foreigners donate to Indian NGOs because the government thinks there is some ulterior motive. Now, it's not always the same. It's not always the same. For example, there's a very famous NGO called Bill and Melinda Gates Organization. Sorry, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Foundation of Bill Gates and his wife, ex-wife. They have done a great job. They have invested a lot of money in India's polio eradication program. You have to give credit for them. They invest huge amount of money in India's development. But there are many examples, as per the government especially, of NGOs getting foreign funding to stop India's development. Recently, the RBI announced that 80 international agencies are not working in India's favor. So RBI said that they would be prior reference category list. What does it mean? RBI a few months back announced that there are some foreign agencies. If the funds are coming from those agencies to India, to Indian NGOs, Home Ministry should look into that. They basically suggested the Home Ministry that if these 80 foreign agencies are donating money to any NGO in India, you should first see, give permission if it should be allowed or not. Only after your permission it should be allowed. They were called prior reference category list. Prior reference category list. It is the RBI that decides that list. They have that power because RBI controls foreign money coming into India. So they thought that they should warn the government that these 80 organizations are working against the interest. This list may go up, may go down, it may increase, it may decrease. It depends on the RBI. Again, you don't have to pay a lot of attention to this. What you have to pay attention to, this is important for you. We have a law called FCRA 2010, Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. This is extremely important for the exam. Please listen and try and understand what is this. Let's assume you are running an NGO in India and you want to take funds from outside India. Okay? You're running an NGO in India, you want to take funds from outside India. There is a law about it. The law is you can take funds up to 25,000 rupees per year. You can take funds up to 25,000 rupees per year. If, as an NGO, you want to take donation from outside India above 25,000, then you have to apply for a license from the FCRA Act. Who will give the license to you? The Union Home Ministry. Home Ministry will see your operations of the NGO. Are you working in India's interest or not? What is your track record? What did you do? If the Home Ministry thinks you are good, they will give you the license and then you can start taking funds from outside. Without that, you cannot. Without this, you can take funds from 25,000 rupees. Once the license is given to you, this is not a lifetime license. This license will be applicable for only 5 years. You have to reapply for license every 5 years. See if the license will be renewed or not. Every time you apply for renewal, again, Home Ministry will check what is your record of the last 5 years. Was there any complaint filed against you? Did you misuse the money? If not, they will give you license once again, 5 years. The law says you can get foreign funds only for these 5 purposes. You can get foreign funds, number 1, for social purposes, for educational purpose, religious, economic, and cultural purpose. These are the only 5 things. As you can see, No political purpose. Political not allowed. So you can take funds from these five or for these five and not for anything else. Now, this law, the FCRA law, had some very interesting changes in 2020. So, in 2020, some changes were made in the law because the government wanted to make it even stricter. What were the changes? Let's see. First, public servants can't take foreign donations. So, a lot of IAS officers, for example, have NGOs along with their job. Many IAS officers have NGO after the job, after their retirement, but many IAS officers, many public servants have NGOs along with the job. They can't take foreign donations. So anyone working in the public service, you can't take foreign donations. Second, transfer of foreign donations. Let's say you have an NGO with the FCRA license. You got 5 crore rupees as a donation. Can you transfer it to some other NGO or not within India? Yes, you can. But transfer will only be done to FCRA registered NGO only. If you have transfer funds to any other NGO within India, you can, but only and only if that NGO also has the FCRA license. So foreign funds cannot go into hands of those NGOs which are not FCRA registered. Then you require Aadhaar card of all the key positions in the NGO, leader of the NGO, people who are running the NGO, they have to submit your Aadhaar details, not a problem. Then another very interesting point. Government says the money coming in from foreign for this NGO cannot be put into any random account. All these NGOs which have an FCRA license compulsorily have to make a bank account in the State Bank of India branch, New Delhi. So in Delhi, there's a specific branch of SBI called SBI New Delhi near the Parliament building. Only in that branch you have to open up account compulsorily, and that money can only go to that account so that the government can keep an eye. It's easy for the government to regulate. In no other bank account can you have this money coming in. Also, very important point here about administrative expenses. Let me give an example to you. Let's imagine that you have an NGO and you say that I teach poor children. Okay, I teach poor children free of cost. So let's say you get funds from America, some rich person gave you 100 crore rupees funds. Now what do? You say, oh, the funds have come, finally, let me first buy an office because I don't like working from a small office. So the first thing you do, you buy an office, 10 crore rupees, because I can't buy a small office. It's also about the image, right? Then when I go to teach, I can't go Uber and Ola every day. So let me buy a luxury car. Let's say 3 crores only, not a problem. Then I thought, let me first go on a holiday. Let me first go to Iceland and other countries to learn how they teach so that I can teach better, right? First, I have to learn to teach and then I will teach. So I will go a world tour. So I'll go on a world tour because, see, I can't compromise with education, right? I have to learn and then teach. So I spend, let's say, 20 crores on that, so on and so forth. All these are administrative expenses of NGO. I am doing this expense not because I like it, mind you. I am doing it because I I want the best for the kids. Simple, right? So these are administrative expenses of the NGO. Can you do that? Can you just spend whatever money you want on the expenses? Because now that you have gotten the money, you do whatever you want. Can you do that? No. The law of FCRA says administrative expenses can be maximum 20%. That is the law. So if you get 100 crore in funds, all your administrative expenses of the NGO cannot be more than 20%. Earlier, it used to be 50%. Earlier limit was 50%. That up to 50% you can, but now it has been reduced to 20%. So whatever money, as you can see here, second last point, whatever money you are getting under this FCRA provision, maximum administrative expense out of that has to be 20%, not more than that. Earlier it was 50, now thankfully it has been reduced to 20 maximum. Then surrender of the certificate. If you are closing your NGO, you will have to surrender your certificate to the government, the FCRA certificate. You can't just transfer your certificate to some other NGO. No. You have to surrender the certificate with the government of India, say that no, I am not working in the NGO now. These changes were made in the law in 2020. In 2020, these changes were made to make the law even more efficient. Now, what is the problem with the FCRA law? The problem is simple. The government banning a lot of NGOs in the past few years has raised a lot of questions in the mind of the NGOs. Now the government of India, Home Ministry especially, having the power to decide who will get the license, who will not get the license is a big problem. The government has banned many NGOs in the past. The reason the government has given is public interest. The government gives the reason public interest. In the public interest, we are banning the NGO. There is no definition of what is public interest that you are using as a reason to ban NGO. What is public interest? Government knows. So the problem here is if any NGO or any social worker criticizes the government anywhere, all of a sudden you have a situation that the government will ban the license, saying that no, you are not working in the public interest. So now it has come in the hands of the government. You criticize the government, forget your license, forget your foreign funding, nothing will be given to you. That has become a big issue. Government literally deciding whether to give you license or not. The Supreme Court in the 2015 Shreya Singhal case gave this freedom that whatever you write on social media cannot be randomly taken against you unless there is solid proof. But again, it has not stopped the government from using this excuse of public interest to ban a lot of NGOs from getting funding, from getting FCI license. That also becomes a big problem. In 2016, there was a UN report that criticized this logic of public interest that was used by the government to fail to deregister or not allow NGOs to get foreign licensing. So this big problem is of government versus the NGO. Government claiming the NGOs are not working in the nation's interest. NGOs saying that the government is not allowing us to work properly. Because of this power of the Home Ministry, the problem is it is against constitutional rights, rights of freedom of expression, that whenever they express something against the government, they are punished, and freedom to form associations. You have the freedom to form association, the government is curbing that right. It is also stopping the NGOs' humanitarian work, and it is repressing the freedom of the people in the society. These are some of the criticisms of the FCRA law, why many people do not like the FCRA law. The Greenpeace example I've already given to you, how Center has banned Greenpeace in India. The last topic, that is a self-help group. I will begin this tomorrow, not today, because I have a quiz for you. So I'll first go to the quiz, do that. I'll answer some of your questions. We have just a very short part of self-help groups remaining. We'll cover that tomorrow, so don't worry about that. So this part and couple of mains questions we will be discussing tomorrow. Let's first start with this. Let's see if we can answer a few questions, and then I'll take up your questions. We are not again in a hurry. We'll complete this part tomorrow. Read this question and see if you can answer. Third statement. I'm sure 1 and 2 everyone knew. Third is slightly tricky. So let me explain. First, everyone knows we discussed. If you're a minority community, you get this right. Second, wrong. You don't get any representation in Lok Sabha because of minority status. That is not true. In Lok Sabha, the only reservation that we have is SC and ST now. Look at the third statement. What exactly is Prime Minister's 15-point program? So basically, in 2005, the government of India launched something called Prime Minister's 15-point program for religious minorities. That is the complete name. It's a 15-point program for religious minorities. So it has some government objectives that we want to increase the literacy rate amongst this much. We want to build more skills. We want to do this and that. There are 15 pointers which has a lot of government targets, especially for religious minorities. This program continues even today. Even the present government has this 15-point program for the name of the prime minister. The content of the program keeps on changing, but it is a program. Now, the reason why it was asked in 2011 was it was in the news then. So you don't have to go into detail of this, just know 15-point program is related to religious minorities. That will be good enough. It's a previous year question in 2011. The answer here is C. Let's move ahead then. Question number 2. Nine is a member, not the law minister. Then the last one is wrong. Deputy chairperson of Rajya Sabha, not the Lok Sabha. Deputy chairperson of Rajya Sabha. Remember, all the other 4 are correct. Prime Minister, Lok Sabha Speaker, leader of the opposition of the 2 houses, but the 2 are different. Deputy chairperson of Rajya Sabha and the Home Minister. So the answer here B. Next. This is up to 25,000. Not 20,000. The other 2 are correct. Second and third are correct. The first one is wrong because it is 25,000. I do have one more question for you, but that is based on self-help group, which we have not read so far. So I will take that question tomorrow. In the PPT, there is one more question, but that is about the self-help group. So we are not doing that today. We'll do that tomorrow. Okay. Once we do that, once we have the self-help group part, then we'll do it. I'll show the leaderboard and I'll take some of your